Enjoy!
Hi everyone, it's Papa Smurf here. I'm glad you can join me at this time because I want to include you in an experiment that I'm conducting. I have a raw egg in my hand, and I'm going to place that egg in the palm of my hand, just like that. And I'm going to lock my fingers and I'm going to squeeze it to death until it crushes and splatters all over the place. You ready? Let's go. That doesn't want to break. And here's the reason why. That egg is almost a perfect Gothic arch. Very tough, very strong. Now this, on the other hand, is the Roman arch. How strong is that? Well, think of the Colosseum in Rome and all those Roman arches that are in that structure, still standing to this day. How many centuries after it was built? But you have to keep in mind that the Colosseum has walls, some of which are 6 feet in thickness, some much more. We'll get back to this. During the Middle Ages, many churches and cathedrals were built in France, in England, and many other countries. And there were 3 innovative ideas that came out of that time period. One was the Gothic or pointed arch. Very strong, very tough. The other was the vaulted ceiling, and the other was the Flying Buttress. Now, from the example of the egg, you've seen how strong this can be. The vaulted ceiling was actually just a long series of Gothic arches, pointed and strong like that. This here is the other innovation, the Flying Buttress. Now, a buttress is just a wall that's built perpendicular to a weaker wall and butted up against it to support it, to keep the weaker wall from caving in. Here's the principle. This here is a cathedral wall, very high, paper thin. The main reasons these walls were so high was to support all those magnificent windows, some of which were 20 feet in diameter, and all that stained glass, wonderful creations. But the wall itself, if you put any kind of a load on the wall, would it take the load or would it buckle and break? Well, of course, it would. The strength was not in the wall itself, but in all the support structure out here. Can you look at this and guess why they were called Flying Buttresses? Does that look like the wing of a bird flying in the air? I don't know. All I know is that this was very, very strong, evidenced by the fact that these cathedrals are still standing, some of them 800 years after they were constructed. Now, the word Gothic, where does that come from? It's interesting to know that from the 1000s to the middle of the 1500s, this construction method that was used on all these churches and cathedrals, it didn't really even have a name. Some people referred to it as French work or French method because the very first cathedral was constructed in France, and from there it spread out all over Europe. But it wasn't until the 1500s, at the beginning of the Renaissance, when architects and engineers, wanting to get away from these methods of construction and wanting to get back to the old classical methods of construction, came up with a derogatory term to use to describe these construction methods that were used in the churches and cathedrals. The word they came up with was Gothic, referring to the Goths or the Vandals or the other barbaric tribes that used to inhabit Europe. The meaning being that these methods of construction in these cathedrals was crude and barbaric. Well, call it whatever you will, but even to this day, there is nothing as strong as the pointed or Gothic arch. And so we're back to the egg again. That's a pointed or Gothic arch. That's a Roman arch, or pretty close to it. Now I've shown you how I couldn't break the egg like that. But let's say I laid that egg on its side, representing a Roman arch. You think if I put my hands like that and squeezed really hard that I would break the egg? Well, I'll tell you right now, the egg will break. I know, because when I was younger, I tried this once just to prove the point. If I was to do that right now and squeeze really hard, that egg would explode and I'd be splattered with egg, and I don't want to do that. But you are welcome to try that at home, just to prove the point. There's only one real question remaining, isn't there? Is that a real egg? Or is that a piece of wood that's been carefully machined and painted white to look like an egg, and I really tricked you? Like that. Well, let's find out. If this is a piece of wood painted white, this isn't going to break no matter how hard I hit it. And to be truthful with you, I'm not sure what it is. All I know is I took it out of the refrigerator this morning. But if this is a real egg, then the principle that I've shown you is true, that it's very strong when it's in this form, the pointed or Gothic form, and weaker when it's in the Roman form. You want to find out if this is a real egg or not? Let's go. Hey, that's a real egg. Breakfast, anyone?